Today is February 27th, 2025. My name is Melissa Ackerman, and I have the pleasure of interviewing Joel Litman today as part of our Jewish Family Service Past President project. How are you today?
Good. Glad to be here. Thanks for the opportunity.
Good to see you. How did you get involved with Jewish Family Service?
I got involved as a volunteer back in the late 80s.
Doing what?
I was asked, my background was in journalism and writing, and so I was looking for a volunteer opportunity and knew Sue Saya and Rena Silverberg, and so they knew I had a writing background and they wanted to, especially Sue wanted to put some stories in the TJP about volunteers for JFS and so forth, so I was asked to write some stories to promote their volunteer programs and who the volunteers are to kind of encourage participation and awareness in the community. So that's how I got started.
Okay, and how long did you do that before you were asked to come on the board?
Oh,
do you remember?
You know, they give you assignments, and you're on this committee and that committee, and they keep throwing ground balls at you. And if you field them well, then they keep hitting at you. And I think it may have been maybe in the mid-90s, so about 6-7 years later,
okay,
I was asked to be on the board.
Okay.
It was one of those things, mostly you just show up. And when you show up, things happen. And so it just kept going and going and going.
So when did you serve as president? Or was it called president or chairman, or what was it? What was the title when you were serving? Do you remember?
That's one of them.
Okay.
I think it was president.
I think it was probably president.
It was president. And I was there from 2004 to 2006.
And who were some of the various leaders during your tenure?
Oh, you know, when I first got on the board, Beverly Tobian was there, Linda Newman, Scott Miller was there, Dr. Pollock, Harlan Pollock was there, he was great. And you know, folks like that you could really, you know, look up to, and it was fun to be with them, but they were leaders as well, a lot of wisdom and you know, folks that were definitely smarter than me, and I would come away thinking, boy, these are really the leaders of the organization, and I was glad to follow them.
That's terrific. Were there any memorable staff that you worked with along the way?
Yeah, of course, Michael Fleischer, the executive director, he was terrific. You know, I always enjoyed being with him, just to hear his thought process and how he perceives things and his thinking process. Of course, Sue Saya, and we had Janine Pullman, Janice Dworkis was there, you know, and I was a fan of hers because she was a writer at the Morning News.
Oh, okay. Did you know each other from?
I was a fan of hers from following her stories in the Morning News, and so it was a good group, a really good crew to be with.
Were there some other committees you were involved in as you were moving along?
Yes, I was involved in the marketing committee, strategic planning committee. I think those are the ones that come to mind. I'm sure, you know, something came up and they asked me to go, or they peg you in there, and said, you show up. So, and I put together some events for them as well, their annual meeting and their volunteer appreciation. Like I said, they kept feeding you stuff.
You do it, and you do it well, and you get more.
You just broke the line.
And were they in the building on Montfort at that point?
Actually started, when I started with them, they were at the Federation building on the JCC campus.
On the bottom floor?
On the bottom floor. And then from there, they moved to the building off of Alpha and LBJ. And then from there, they moved to the Montgomery Ward Tire Shop off of Arapahoe and Prestonwood Town Center.
Right.
And to me, that's a great story because I remember, you know, we'd have a caravan of the board members, and we'd go looking from building to building to building as they were looking for a new site. And someone said, well, there's the Montgomery Road Tire Center, and back then, you know, it was way north. And I just learned you can, you know, with a few bucks and some tools and some ideas, you can turn anything into something else.
Absolutely, and it's grown over time. It was the beauty part, the hair salon place was right there.
And it just amazing. It just taught me that with a vision and, like I said, ideas and manpower and some sweat, you can turn into something that worked. It's been there, 25 years or so.
Long time. Have you been over to the new site?
Yes, incredible building. it definitely takes JFS to a higher level. And I think it's going to help JFS meet the demand for services in the community, because it's 21st century is the building.
How has JFS, how have the programs and services evolved over since you've been involved?
Yeah, it started, or it was always kind of they use the term best kept secret. And it was a group, but really kind of focused on the Jewish community. And it was, folks who had time or retired or whatever, work with the professional staff. But as the city's grown and the community's grown, the demands have grown, the professionalism has risen with it. And now you have people, certainly young folks, a very diverse group there, and not just the Jewish community, but the entire community now is part of it. And I think that's how it grew from what it was 20, 30, 40 years ago to what it is today.
Were there partnerships between Jewish Family Service and other Jewish community agencies when you were serving?
Yeah, certainly with the Federation was a great partner, and with some of the schools and so forth. And one that was strong outside the Jewish community was with United Way.
I was going to ask you about
Yeah,
that.
they were a big United Way.
Did you have to make the presentation or be part of the presentation?
Made the presentation and went down, and certainly you learned about how United Way worked and what they're looking for. It's changed over the years, because United Way was a big supporter, financially of the agency, but that's like everything else over the time. It's changed. I think they're still involved, but not to the extent that it was back then.
Was that highlighting different programs that were happening at the agency?
Yeah, they had, I think it was called Different Ways, 5 Ways, part of United Way. And they wanted to see, what you did in the community, and then as times changed, what you did outside the Jewish community. Because that was, we're Jewish Family Service, so back when I got started, we served the Jewish community. But then as the community grew and the demand for services grew, it had to branch out outside the Jewish community, really to stay viable, to sustain itself. And so, and that was always a topic of discussion, but it just got to a point to where if we want to keep growing, we have to go outside. Certainly the Jewish community is number one, but also other area organizations and communities as well.
Were there any significant local, national, or international events that impacted your opinion?
There was one big one called Hurricane Katrina.
Yes.
And so I became president, I think in, May of 2004.
Okay.
Anyway, so Katrina came, after that. And
Why don't you tell about some of the things that the agency did
just,
to help? I remember.
It was just incredible, because it's like, this hasn't happened before. What do we do? And with Michael and the board and the professional staff, everyone else, it was just, bringing supplies in and getting people resettled. And the folks coming in from New Orleans, and you have to get diapers and supplies, and it was hot and it was steamy. It was that Labor Day weekend. It was just, but people really rallied, and it's one of those things where, one of those events where you can't really plan for because you don't know what to expect, but when it happens, everyone really rallies.
The community really came together.
They came together, and it just lifted JFS up to a higher level, because we're talking at the time, how do we reach out to the non-Jewish community? Right. Well, this lifted it up there. You work with Catholic Charities, some Muslim organizations, and just anybody. And JFS was front and center, just for the effort and the hop to it attitude, and the muscle that everyone provided.
It was not only food, but it was clothing. It was everything.
It was
people
diapers,
came with
it
nothing.
Was supplies. People came up here, like I said, with nothing, and JFS was there, and people kept bringing stuff. I remember the boardroom was full of supplies and just clean supplies. I just remember diapers everywhere. Boxes of diapers.
And that was before the whole diaper drive, but
it really was.
Really served a need.
If you had planned it out beforehand, well, when this happens, we'll do A, B, and I don't know if it would have happened. This was just, you call 911, everyone responded, and it just put JFS to a different level.
Did you, I imagine there were just people coming to volunteer just from everywhere, just trying to help.
There were lines of cars waiting to drop off supplies,
Yeah.
and how they heard about it, it just word of mouth.
I remember that. It was really something.
It really was.
It really was. Who were some of the prominent community supporters of JFS, the donors and philanthropists that were important?
Well, obviously, most important, the Zale family. They've been very supportive of the agency since the very beginning. I know Nate and Ann Levine have been. Trying to remember other ones.
No, there've been a lot. I don't know if anybody came to mind.
Right. Those two folks, I know. I don't want to exclude anybody.
No. There are a lot. I'm sure there are a lot. I didn't know if anything just came to your mind. But what changes have you experienced in the Dallas Jewish community over the years?
I've seen, just geographically, where it has been and where it is and where it's growing. When we talked about moving the building up to Arapahoe and the tollway, it's like that. I remember in the boardroom people saying, it is so far, and who's going to go there? And, that's just way too far out. Now you look at it.
South.
It's south,
Right.
and we're up into, Collin County and Frisco and all those areas up there. So I've seen that geographically. Also the diversity of the community, whether it be the gay community or LGBTQ or whatever. It's just it's not just the Jewish community it serves, but the entire community. And I think, like I said earlier, that's what's sustaining the programs and the growth of the agency.
Are there any memorable moments from the past 75 years of JFS that you would want to bring up?
Yeah, one was just by chance that came up. I was my company had moved to a new location down by Fair Park. This was back 2015, 2016, and so we were told, our business told, get to know the neighborhood. They know you're here. Get to know who the people are down here. So there was an area there called Jubilee Park, and it's a low-income area, Black and Hispanic, and it serves a lot of the lesser privileged down just east of Fair Park. And so they have a community service center there, and they provide programs for kids. They provide new housing for seniors, but not so much as far as social services go. And I just went over to introduce myself to the executive director, and after I met with him, I thought, well, I wonder if Michael knows these people. Because the agency had only been involved, I think, in Vickery Park as far as being outside. And this was down by Fair Park, so a whole different part of the community that, there was opportunities there. So I got Michael and the executive director, Ben Liao, got together. And they knew each other, but it just opened opportunities and discussion. And then shortly thereafter, the agency had a couple cllinicians down there. And it just expanded. Now they're part, not only is the agency down there, Parkland is down there now with the clinic, and it just has expanded incredibly. And the agency is also in other parts of the community just because of what's down there, and they're seeing what works. Well, we'll go to this part of town and that part of town. And just, like I said, it just kind of organically evolved just by walking up and saying hello to the people at Jubilee Park.
Letting them know what is available.
Yeah.
That's great. What were some of the initiatives to increase interest in Jewish Family Service and its mission, other than going and actually meeting people in the neighborhood?
Well, I think the food bank has played a big role in that, as far as getting the programs out that the agency has, and you have other ones that one time they had adoption, they don't do that any longer, and they also had the resettlement of Russian Jews back in the 80s. But those have evolved into other programs as well. It's programs for schools with children with special needs. And food bank, I said, I know there's others that...
No, there's been a lot. I was talking to somebody the other day and was talking about some of the people that were resettled, and now you're serving from years ago, and the agency's serving them.
Right.
They were Holocaust survivors and a lot
With
of
the
the
job-
elderly that are being serviced.
Yeah, and the job bank as well, you know, that's
Mhm.
been in existence a long time.
Mhm.
So it continues to prove itself by getting opportunities for folks, you know, looking for work.
Mhm. In relation to your time at JFS as president and serving on the board and everything,
Right.
what are you most proud?
Well, most proud that I was able to serve as president, and especially during Katrina. That's what, because that was, you know, that wasn't pre-planned.
Mhm.
And it just showed how the community rallied, whether it was the Jewish community, the non-Jewish community, whatever, and everybody. And everyone just stepped up and went above and beyond to serve the needs of whatever needed to be done.
Mhm.
And like I said, it just pushed the agency on into another level, that we're looking at how to do that. You know, how do we reach out to this community and that community? And this just kind of, like I said, organically did it for us. And with no really printed plan on paper that this is how we're going to do it.
Are you still actively involved as a volunteer?
Yes, I've worked on the capital campaign for the agency.
Okay.
So I was the chairman of the capital campaign
Okay.
for the new building coming up,
Mhm.
and was president of the foundation.
Okay.
So still
You're still there.
involved. I'm still there.
Still involved.
I'm still there. Right.
And it has grown and
It-
changed.
Oh, it really has.
Changed
The
with the
fact
times.
that it's going from, you know, into the new building, and you just look at what opportunities that's going to present itself.
When's that scheduled to open?
I believe
You know?
in September of 2026.
Okay.
Yeah. And through the agency, I was also involved in the national JFS.
Oh, you
board.
were?
This was back 2010. It was
The
called-
organization that governs,
Yeah, right.
supports the
Right.
local agencies?
AJFCA.
Okay.
And so I was involved in that, on the board there for a few years. So that was
Does the
exciting.
president typically go to a meeting annually or every
No,
couple
not-
years or
not
anything
really.
like that?
It was if you received the volunteer appreciation award,
Oh, okay.
then you went.
Okay.
And the president went as well.
That's nice.
And so it was, again, one of those events that kept going, kept
Mhm.
going, kept
Mhm.
going. I got on the board,
Mhm.
and so I was on it for about 5-6 years or so.
Oh, that's nice. How does Dallas's JFS compare with some of the other JFSs
You know,
across the
that's a
country?
good question. You have your A-list, New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, but Dallas, I think, is right up there with them. Obviously, it doesn't have the scope
Right.
of those other ones,
Mhm.
but I think over years, the quality of the programming, I think the quality of the people involved has really risen. You know, it's pushed it up there to be right up there with the top
Mhm.
agencies.
Mhm. Is there anything about JFS that is not commonly known that you want the community to know and understand?
I think there's a perception that JFS just serves the Jewish community, and it serves everybody.
Mhm.
Or, I don't know how you'll edit this, but some folks say, well, they don't serve the needs of the Jewish community. Well, yes, they do. If anyone can call and get services, we're not excluding anybody.
Mhm.
You know. But I think so, and again, I don't know how you'll edit that or what.
We're good. We're good.
But I think it used to be known, and people would always say this is the best kept secret.
Mhm.
I remember the board meetings would talk about that. Now, I don't think it better say that, because it's not true.
No.
It's really not true. You go anywhere, and the work that Kathy has done and her staff, and you go anywhere around, and people know who they are.
Mhm.
They know who we are.
Right.
Yeah, they really do.
And the whole idea of the wraparound services, did that
Yes.
sort of, was that
Yeah.
in place when you were?
It was starting, now that they
yeah.
have, you know, medical clinic, and they're
Mhm.
starting to expand in that field, which wasn't there before, and just to look and see how can they reach out again further to, if someone needs medical services or a checkup, or they need a flu shot, they can go there.
Mhm.
You know, that's what it's there for, where they didn't have it before.
And the agency wants to serve anybody regardless of their need.
Yes, whether,
pay.
regardless of the
Ability to pay.
ability to pay. If you can pay something, great. If not, you're not turned away.
That is very special. Is there anything else that we didn't cover that you want to mention before we close?
You know, the agency's woman-to-woman events has really expanded over the years. It started back in maybe 2000, 2001, and had Stanley Marks' daughter speaking, and they've had Jill Biden. Jill Biden was there. Bette Midler was there. Well, if you were there, I mean, she put on a show, and it's just become an incredible event, not just for the entertainment, but also just the gathering where you start out with a few hundred folks, and now it's over 1,000 come to this event every 2 years. So that's really become I think, one of the highlights of the social scene for the Jewish community in Dallas. I've been very blessed. I'm very proud to have served, you know, as a volunteer and an officer and a past officer of the agency, and just to see how it's grown, and the fact that, again, it's just blossomed into something that if you go back when I started back in the late 80s, I think if say here we are today in that building in Addison, I don't know if people would have believed it, but you know, again, you just keep at it, and good things happen.
Well, thank you for all your years of service
Thank
and
you.
your continued service. I've really enjoyed
Appreciate
talking
it.
to you today.
Thank you.
Thank you.